We are so ready for Duke basketball to get back in action this weekend. They'll take on the Virginia Cavaliers at home tomorrow. A big game coming up for this Duke basketball team. How can they win it? What is it going to take to get that W? We discuss it on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. We hope that you're doing well here today on Friday, March 1st, 2024. Our favorite month of the year in the college basketball world has finally arrived, and we've got a lot to discuss here on this episode of Locked On Blue Devils, as the Duke men's basketball team has got a couple of games left here in the regular season, starting with the showdown tomorrow against the Virginia Cavaliers. And our good friend Josh Cox is back with us here today to talk about it all here on the program. Duke with the win earlier in the week against Louisville. We'll discuss Caleb Foster's injury and so much more. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Also, make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and written review on the Apple Podcast platform. Your support means so much to us over there as well. And then also, make sure you go watch our show each and every day on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like these videos, share it with your friends. It just means so much. All right, so let's bring them on in. Josh Cox is here with us now, and it's been the moment we've been waiting for a long, long time. The calendar has officially turned to March. How you feeling, Josh?
Yeah, we had that extra day in February, man. Didn't know what I was going to do with myself. But, yeah, we are now in March, and here Duke sits in the top two in the ACC. Yeah, I mean, Duke fans, what more could you ask for, right? It's March.
This is what we're looking for. We're looking for a big tournament run now for the Duke basketball team, looking to end the regular season on a high note. Still the possibility out there that Duke could at least claim a part of a regular season co-championship. And maybe if North Carolina drops a game or two here down the stretch, maybe Duke is your outright ACC champions. But they've got business to take care of first. And it starts with Virginia this weekend. Before we get there, however, you were in the building earlier this week. Duke picks up a pretty dominant victory over Louisville, 84-59, the final score in this one. People were curious whether or not Filipowski would play. They were curious whether or not Caleb Foster would be a part of the action. And we found out those answers. What were your big takeaways from the Duke win over Louisville?
Yeah, first of all, good to have Nolan Smith back in the house always, and Cameron. But yeah, my takeaways, a couple of things on the Louisville side is they're tough. They're rough, man. Like they don't shoot the ball well. That was not a good basketball team on the court there. But with that being said, it's still an ACC matchup, right? And we've learned this over the years. You never take home away. You never take an ACC matchup for granted. And so, Filipowski, I thought he did not look a step slow or anything. Just to be honest with you, he looked very normal in this game. What I really loved about his game against Louisville, JJ, is that I didn't feel like he pushed in any way. I didn't feel like he tried to I've got to get myself going right now.
Yeah.
That just wasn't his mentality. He was content to distribute the ball. I mean, we're looking at the stats right now, 6 assists for Filipowski. I mean, he's turning into, you know what I mean, just that guy. I spoke to him about this after the game, and also I asked Coach Shire about this. But, with all of the media scrutiny and everybody's opinions about what happened at the court storming there in Winston-Salem, there was a lot of chatter about Filipowski online and whatnot. And Kyle has also told us that he has the mental battle that he struggles with, right? The mental part of the game, he struggles to not let it come out in his play and in the way that he acts. And so, I thought it was very important that Kyle played that game against Louisville with a smile on his face. He seemed like he was having fun. He never seemed like he didn't get into that mode where he got the ball and he's like, I am going to take this ball to the basket in any way. Like, he just didn't do it. And so, like, I was really pleased with that on the Filipowski side. The Caleb Foster side, we saw him. He was in a boot. He was scooting around on a scooter. Extended period of time, I think, is the terminology that Coach Shire used, or we're going to be without him for some period of time. So we really don't know. You know how Duke is with injuries, man. We really don't know. Caleb Foster was an integral part of this team. And, what we saw, at least in the Louisville game, was, I thought heading into it, and I was wrong, but I thought we were just going to see Jalen Blakes getting 15 minutes in this game.
Right.
What we actually saw, and John mentioned after the game that it was kind of a matchups thing. We actually saw TJ Power and Sean Stewart playing a little bit more, and Duke played a little bit of a bigger lineup. And those three guards really, I mean, they really kind of stayed in for the majority of all that. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the injuries, the two guys with the injuries. I do think that with Foster out, I do think in this Virginia game and games moving forward, this is my opinion, I believe John trusts Jalen Blakes a little bit more than he trusts like a TJ Power at this moment. So I think in those bigger games where you're not ahead by 15 to 20 points, I think you may see a little bit more Blakes in the rotation.
Yeah, good to see TJ Power out there getting his opportunity in moments. And for Caleb Foster, obviously his shooting is what he was able to bring a good bit for this Duke basketball team. And we haven't seen that as much from Jalen Blakes. That could be something that Power brings to the floor. We've talked a lot about the Duke basketball kind of branding and media work that they do with inside the program itself. There's just no team out there that's putting the content out that Duke is. From the coaches sitting down with the player, going over a little bit of film that you can watch as the fan. And then yesterday we see a clip from the Louisville game on the bench where Coach Carrawell is talking about how big of a moment this is for TJ Power, how excited he is that he's getting the opportunity to go out there on the floor and play. And then TJ Power knocks down the shot. There's the big reaction from Coach Carrawell on the bench. You hear Emmanuel Dildy immediately compliment Kyle Filipowski's passing ability, which you were just talking there, Josh. But, man, we just love that stuff to kind of see those coaches really advocating and cheering on those players in the game. And now there's the video footage that backs that up. Saw it earlier this year with Jay Lucas and Jeremy Roach.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And one more quick thing about TJ Power, as you were speaking about him, there was a moment in the first half where he picked up a second foul, and I immediately looked at the bench. And
who's moving?
Correct. And they left him in. They kept him in the game. And, with these freshmen that don't get a ton of minutes, Stewart and Power specifically, I think whenever there's a chance where they know it would be very easy for Coach Shire to take them out of the game and he leaves them in to play through it, I think that means a whole lot to those guys. And you could kind of sense it in Power's, demeanor. And so I thought that was interesting for sure in that game.
Let's go ahead and we'll take our next break here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation about the state of the team with just a few games remaining here in the regular season. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Nissan. That's right. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further? Have you ever wondered what adventure would be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. We're talking about the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive Google built-ins is always your updating assistant to call on for almost anything. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. It's got room for up to 8 people, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there for the answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, and others, and go find your next big adventure. Right now, shop NissanUSA.com. Nissan, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Moving forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, JJ Jackson alongside my pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast, with the Durham Devils Club, with Duke Report. He's pretty much everywhere these days. You got it all covered. I want to get to this game this weekend. Big one against Virginia. Man, they scored over 50 points earlier this week, which we're not used to seeing. What do you think is going to, like the matchup specifically, what needs to be done on the Duke side? What are you seeing out of this Virginia team, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Virginia is who they are. I mean, they're still, as they are, every season, they're in the top 5 defense in the country, right? Like, it just is. That's a Tony Bennett team. So the game is going to be ugly, more than likely, right? So unless something crazy happens, this is going to be a lower scoring game. This is going to be one of those deals where we're going to be sitting at that maybe the 12-minute timeout, and we're going to be like, there's really only been it's 5-3, you know what I mean, or whatever. Like, it's one of those games. But the biggest thing with UVA is that Duke has got to get, and any team that plays them, you have to get out and get a lead. If you get a lead and you get 8 points, 10 points ahead, anytime, close to halftime and after, this UVA team struggles, as you mentioned, to score the basketball. And so they obviously struggle to come back on the team. The UVA wins games by keeping the game within 2 to 3 points throughout the entire time. And then in the end, they just happen to make some big shots or whatever it may be. And so the key for Duke in this game is going to be, can they get to that 8-point, 10-point margin sometime late in the first half? And then can they then sustain that throughout the second half?
And we'll see if they're able to do something like that. It's a UVA team that has got shooters galore out there. But I think as Jay Billis and Seth Greenberg have been known to break down the games, not as many shot makers for this team. They've got shooters, not shot makers. Jordan Mann even made that point a little bit earlier in the week here on this show. So I think the matchups for Duke are going to be certainly interesting to follow. And then to your point a little bit earlier, it felt like Louisville was an opportunity for Stewart and Power, the bigger guys, to get out there and play. Is this a game in which Jalen Blakes is more involved? Does TJ Power shooting keep him on the floor? Those are kind of the juggling pieces. I'm curious how John Shire will deal.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. And then obviously, I mean, this is the Reese Beekman, you know what I mean? This is a Reese Beekman team. And so, just depending on, the matchup there, I think that'll be obviously one to look at on the Duke side. And so, but it's funny you mentioned that. I didn't hear that with Jordan shot takers, but not necessarily shot makers. That could be a recipe for a lot of losing basketball. If you have people that are shooters but they're not shot makers, you can lose some basketball games with those type of players. And honestly, this has not been your vintage UVA basketball team. You look back at those teams that were top 10, top 5 in the country, and what they actually did have is they did have shot makers. They did have guys, even though their offense was slow and they always ran the clock down, where they had people that could absolutely light it up.
Yeah.
And so I don't see that on this team. I think this is a classic, how do you approach Beekman? Do you say we're not going to let Beekman beat us and we absolutely focus on him and see if other people can beat you? Or do you say we're going to guard Beekman straight up, he's going to get his, but nobody else is going to be, do anything? That's going to be interesting to see how John plays that. But I'll tell you the good thing I've noticed on Duke on the defensive end, and we're going to see this against UVA, is Duke switches really well on defense. They switch off the ball as well. A lot of times on screens off the ball, Duke this season has been switching those. Duke has also done a good job. And I don't know that this is a thing in basketball, but I watch this. If there's off-ball switches and it turns out that you have a guard that got switched onto a big, Duke is actually really good off the ball of figuring that out during the play and getting that switch back. So you don't wind up with Jeremy Roach, you know what I mean, getting posted up by a 6'10" guy.
Right.
And so while Duke switches, when they're off the ball, they try to get kind of set back up with the right matchups. And so I think if they do that against UVA, I mean, listen, Duke's got a good defense as well. And so I full well expect Duke to come out of this game with a win. Like I said, it's probably an uglier win than what some people want it to be, but a win nonetheless.
That's what we're looking for, a win for this Duke basketball team to set them up for the final week of the season. After that, of course, a quick turnaround on Monday to take on NC State and Raleigh, and then the Tar Heels looming next Saturday before you head off to the ACC tournament and see what that NCAA tournament picture looks like for this Duke team. But to your point, a little bit more on this Virginia team. Yeah, in years past, 2019 national champions, we know how talented the program is, but Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome, DeAndre Hunt, like there's some really good basketball. Trey Murphy, big-time shot makers for UVA, and we'll see what happens in the matchup this week. All right, let's take our last time out here on the show. We'll get a few more thoughts from Josh, and then we'll talk about a little bit more about Caleb Foster's injury here on Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make sure that you get buckets on your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Blue Devils here today. Final few moments, we bring back in Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast, the Durham Devils Club, Duke Report, a lot going on in your world. Promote something that you've been working on lately, Josh. What can people go check out?
Oh, sure. Let's see. Let's pick. Let's go Duke Report. Let's do it. It's basketball season. And spring football practice has not started yet. So, but no, Duke Report, I work with Freddie Hodges over there. And honestly, the Twitter account, it had kind of been left dormant for a couple of years, and we've tried to resurrect it, which is really cool. So if you don't follow Duke Report because you're like, hey, there wasn't really much going on that account, for a while, it's back up and rolling. And so do that. Freddie will be at the UVA game. He'll be at the UNC game. And we try to give you a little bit of a behind-the-scenes feel of what it's like to, be down there close to the action. And so follow Duke Report on Twitter. I know that Freddie would appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you follow that account, and if you've been listening to Locked On Blue Devils for long enough, or heck, even if you're a Section 17 loyalist, we love that. You will see locker room sounds following the game, and you will recognize a voice oftentimes in those videos asking the questions.
That's right. I had a really good conversation with Filipowski after the Louisville game, and I asked him specifically about the play of Mark Mitchell and Sean Stewart. And, it was really interesting. I think just Flip gets a bad rap for some reason. That dude loves his teammates, man. He loves his teammates. And, he literally, my arm was getting tired because I'm like, dude, shut up. I need to ask another question or move on. And, he literally kept talking about him. And, anyway, those are the cool things we like to bring you behind the scenes. We'll ask the questions. I haven't posted it yet because I don't know how the clip looks really, but talking to Mark about shooting 47% from three-point in the ACC play, things like that. Things that, fans want to talk to players about. So we try to do that at Duke Report, and we appreciate anybody that follows along.
And make sure you also go check out the podcast, Section 17 podcast. Leave a 5-star rating and written review for that show and this show in particular. It's a 5-star Friday. I want to give some love to Duke 940-53211. Shout out to you. 5-star review just the other day. I love listening to this podcast so much. Great insight and analysis. Keep up the good work. And do it for Section 17. I'm prepared. A 5-star Friday shout out to D. Scott 4591. A 5-star review says if you're not listening to Section 17, you're doing it wrong.
That's Derek, man. Derek.
I don't want to be doing it wrong, man.
Derek's a loyal listener, man. He's been listening for a long time. That's really cool. Yeah, for sure.
We want more 5-star reviews. All right, so a couple of more games left here. We've been talking about Caleb Foster a little bit, what he's brought to the Duke team throughout the season. Again, it seems like a really serious injury. He's got the boot. He's got the scooter that he's rolling around on, and not going to be in the lineup this weekend against UVA. Caleb Foster's year so far, a slower start, big game against Michigan State when Duke needed it in the Champions Classic. But I tell you what, I think if you were to ask the coaches, they would definitely compliment just how steady he's been throughout the entire season. Like, that is a guy where you look at the freshman guards, you see the emotion at all times on Jared McCain, and we absolutely love that. Caleb Foster is just locked in and steady the whole way through a game.
Yeah, just a different personality, right? All business. And here's what a lot of people don't realize. In conference play, over 46% from three.
Whew.
And I know he doesn't have – the shot doesn't look like Jared's, right? Like, don't get me started.
Not many people do.
This is – first time I've not crushed on McCain on a podcast in a while. But anyway, he doesn't have that type of a shot, but he's effective. 46+% from three in ACC play. He's steady. As a true freshman, when he has the basketball in his hands, JJ, I feel good about it. Like, I feel like he's not going to turn the ball over. I feel like he's going to make the right decision. And while some of the things he does may not be the flashiest, he's 6'5". He can finish at the rim. He can shoot the three, and he doesn't make bad decisions. Give me that all day long, right? And so Duke is going to be without that. I don't know. This is only speculation, right? Does he sit out until the ACC tournament? Do they sit him out until the NCAA tournament? Is he out for the season? We have no idea. We don't know. The one thing we do know is this backcourt has depth. We've said it from the very beginning. It's got depth.
Yep.
We know that while Jalen Blake's only played 3 minutes against Louisville, we know that if needed, Jalen Blake should play 30 minutes a game. So I look at it that way. I hate it, man. Like, it sucks that Foster is out. But on the other hand, this team is deep in that area. And so now it's, okay, we're going to probably get a few more minutes from McCain, Roach, and Proctor. But also Blake's can step in that role. Or like John did with Louisville, TJ Power can step in and play that three. And we'll roll the dice and go that way. And so at the end of the day, injuries are something you have to play with in sports, play with as a team. And so it's super cliche, but it's next man up. Who's going to take those minutes? Who's going to fill that role? And Duke's still got basketball games to win.
Last question of the podcast today, and then we'll get out of here, Josh. But we're talking about the shooting numbers for Caleb Foster. I mean, Jeremy Roach feels like he never misses anymore from the outside. Proctor's getting into more of a rhythm here lately. Jared McCain's been doing it all year long. Filipowski didn't take any earlier in the week against Louisville, but even he has been kind of on the upward climb with the outside shot there. Question here, the last 3 games, 13 made threes against Miami, 11 against Wake Forest, 11 the other night against Louisville. A lot of people kind of highlighting what John Shire's been doing in some of these offensive sets, swinging the ball, backdoor cuts, finding open shooters. You've been there in person as of late. What are you seeing? How has Duke been able to get so many open looks? And now the team's knocking them down, man. I mean, I think we do got to give some praise to Coach Shire and that coaching staff for what they've been able to draw up as of late.
Yeah, I mean, whatever the schemes are, I mean, they run that flare screen. It's the first thing that pops in my head. The most obvious one they do is they run that flare screen where they get the ball typically to McCain, kind of pushing out to the right-hand side. They do that quite a bit. The transition threes, I mean, that's a Duke staple. But, I mean, McCain hit a couple of them the other night against Louisville. And the sets that Duke's running, I mean, here's the thing. When Kyle Filipowski is willing to have 6 assists per game, a lot of those assists are cross-court corner passes to open threes. And so those things all work together. And I am not intelligent enough on the schematics to know specifically what John is doing. But I do know this, Duke is shooting open looks. Their threes are open. And so the unselfishness, whatever they're doing there, is working. To shout out the three-point shooting, as I know we're shutting down. To shout it out, in ACC play, Jeremy Roach is 50% from three, 31 of 62. Just
that's wild,
ridiculous. And we got to give a shout out, JJ. We can't leave tonight without our 100% three-point shooter, Mr. Spencer Hubbard. One for one on the season. And so that was an incredible moment in Cameron.
Yeah, thank you I didn't even get to mention that on yesterday's show, kind of recapping the Louisville game, but that was a whole lot of fun walk-on, given a scholarship player this year or this season after Duke doesn't get anybody out of the transfer portal, and just a massive, massive three-point shot that he was able to make. So, tip of the cap.
What I found out about Spencer Hubbard, I think it's his great-grandfather is Mr. Washington Duke, or like grandfather or somebody. Like he is
big deal.
Duke royalty.
Yeah,
So.
No doubt. Well,
Yeah.
Josh, it's great to see you as always. We look forward to talking again next week. Thanks for stopping by, man.
All right, JJ, have a good one, man. Go Duke.
That's Josh Cox joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, and that'll do it for our show here today. Thanks so much for your support. As always, leave us those 5-star ratings and written review on the Apple Podcast platform. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and let's go beat Virginia this weekend. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you on Monday. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you, and good day.